Alright, just the one package. And it's not going to be particularly exciting. I mean, it's only one thing. It's not even something new to me. It's just, well, Wolf Children. Steelbook version. I'll just double check to make sure. Ultra HD plus Blu-ray limited edition Steelbook. I'm pretty sure I already have this on Blu-ray because it came out when I was doing Blu-ray stuff. But, you know, Steelbooks, gotta collect. And I guess it was a good call because this is the only thing that showed up today. That said, my Steelbook appears to be a little bit damaged. That's unfortunate. That's quite unfortunate. Well, I'll have to think what to do about that. Maybe, I don't know. Well, in any case, we got all that. Is there anything to note on the back here? What is that? That is not a bunch of... I'm just not seeing anything on here that kind of indicates a region, which makes me wonder if it's all regions or if they're only describing like the 4K HD part. Don't know. In any case, well, there's this week's Physical Anime Collection update. Let's see. I guess beginning with the things I watched with my Friday friend. So we watched Kaiju number 8, season 2, episode 15. Which I'm not really quite sure what to think about it, other than to say that, yeah, I guess the episode made me worried how if the show's becoming a little too distracted by things other than Kaiju number 8, you know, our titular character. And the latest episode, you know, season 2, episode 16, which I did watch, maybe continues that feeling a little bit. It doesn't feel like too bad per se, insofar as these elements are coming together in a way that feels like more relevant to the story as a whole, as opposed to, oh, it's just too distracted by these other characters it's made. So in that regard, this episode, this latest episode, episode 16, kind of continues what the previous one did and is not very strong from a Kaiju number 8, the titular character perspective, but it's mostly a question of, okay, what are they doing with this? Because they've set up a story that's a little more intended to be a story. And by that I mean, if you compare and contrast it to, say, season 1. Season 1, when it was about Kaiju number 8, it was really about these moments of him being awesome with kind of these undertones of, I guess there's important story that's potentially going to happen that we need to pay attention to or watch out for. And yeah, season 2 is definitely working more towards developing stuff that is probably that story. And I guess we'll have to see. And so in that regard, you know, episode 16 isn't as exciting as the stuff from the first season, but it's still something where it's like, okay, I'm still enjoying the stuff that's happening, and I'm still waiting to see what you're going to do with it, because it's probably about to be quite noteworthy. But yeah, we'll have to see. The other thing I watched with my Friday friend was Dragon Ball Daima, episode 12 to 14. Okay stuff, I guess. I guess there was that one episode, which was one I didn't care about. Again, I think while it's being whimsical, it feels like, no. We want to see our Saiyans being more than forces of nature. But, I don't know. I digress. It's still fun stuff, but only fun, I guess. Let's see, Reborn as a Vending Machine Season 2, Episode 6. I guess we had a character twist in there. Hard to say what I feel about it. It feels like it's not necessarily a twist just to be a twist, but it does feel like it's maybe not as exciting, I guess. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't feel relevant to our main character per se. Something sort of like a foil, but not exactly. So, anyways, Clevatas episode 6. I guess we'll have to see. I think watching our main cast of characters out and doing stuff has been neat. Especially since, we have the new character and we finally get to see more of that. But then I guess we'll just have to see what the setup at the end of the episode is about to do. Let me see. Onmyo Kaiten Rebirth, episode 6. I think this is where the show's revealed something I kind of suspected. Not precisely what it revealed, but something along these lines. But what it did reveal was interesting. It's hard to say if the show's going to get too complicated, or maybe it's just fine. But it's been neat. I think it continues to go. Not sure what else to say. Rising of the Shield Hero, Season 4, Episode 5. I guess an okay episode, but I also wonder if, to some degree, I feel like I'm not holding on to too much weight in terms of, okay, is it going to stop developing all the side characters? It's hard to say if any of this feels like it's relevant to the plot. It doesn't feel as much of a complete distraction as Season 3 felt, even though, like I said, the characters are very great. But, yeah. Fine stuff, I guess. Reincarnated as the Seventh Prince, Season 2, Episode 17. Let's see. Because some of these I have to remember because, I'm going through the list of them in terms of when they aired, kind of. So, I'm only on the Wednesday stuff, and a couple of these things, of course, I watched day of, and so those are the longest things, and there's a question of how well I can remember what happened in them. Because I remember with Seventh Prince, I resumed from the previous episode. It had this and that pieces of information. It had that reveal at the end. There was something about this episode that felt a lot more serious than a lot of Seventh Prince stuff. And the whimsicalness of our main character is just also to a certain degree taken over, because it's I could have sworn that previously that this wouldn't have been an issue with I don't think I'm putting it the right way. Some of the stuff feels like is happening because the whimsy of the series is kind of moving it forward. Things like not just characters intentionally dressing Lloyd up in a detective outfit as he's thinking about stuff, but also certain other characters kind of going along with it when traditionally they've been more controlling characters. As in I'm your mentor, so you have to do what I say sort of stuff. Sort of stuff. Anyways. Interesting tonal change, but not necessarily out of place, inappropriate, or wrong. Just interesting curiosities. And I think setting up this character as a really good foil for Lloyd. So we'll have to see where it goes from there. So, fun episode. Welcome to the Outcast Restaurant, episode 6. Oh, yeah. Another one of those episodes to get mad at people. Definitely wanted some people skinned alive. Maybe more like burned alive. And I think the main character almost did that, and I wanted him to keep going. Maybe do it to that whole fucking town. granted, they weren't as bad as like the elves from that 12, not 12 rings, from that multiple rings one. But I would say that the rage I felt in some of this episode was possibly on par to Shield Hero, early Shield Hero stuff. You know, just like, nope. How dare those fuckers that... Yeah. I wouldn't even say that it necessarily feels like it ends with a feeling of justice has been served, per se. Mostly because there is an element of it to what happens at the end. But at the same time... it ends on a note. But unfortunately, that note is not a bunch of people dying, begging for sweet release of death, and too bad, you need to be an example to other people, you evil, evil, evil pieces of shit. But I don't know. So, yeah, this episode got me pretty damn angry. Dan to Dan, Season 2, Episode 18. I guess for the most part, you know, it's continuing to do stuff, and it's neat, and it's crazy, but I guess I'm not sure if I feel theme or not. But it's definitely neat to have the episodes on good vibe sort of stuff, which is weird because some of it is not necessarily good vibe per se, but somehow in the not good vibe it tends to be good vibe, and I don't know. Still a fun show. The 6th episode of Water Magician did not air this week. I think that hopefully comes this coming week, or hopefully the show didn't get canceled, because I'm really enjoying that one. I really like how it is doing, just how it feels when it's not doing the portions of, oh, the main character is overpowered. It really does feel like he's on a little adventure, and I kind of find his moments just pleasing. So I missed that. We had Dr. Stone Science Feature Season 4 Part 2 Episode 17. They did that. And oh yeah, I need to make sure I talk to coworker about that. But yeah, I think fun stuff and a very interesting end to that episode. I wasn't sure what to expect, but it wasn't that. And so that's intriguing. So I'm looking forward to the next episode. Secrets of the Silent Witch, Episode 6. Okay, this one was the most shoujo episode of them so far. And I think it's high quality shoujo. As in, like, good stuff. But if our main character is the Silent Witch, then they introduce a new character who... maybe she's a nice person, but she definitely comes off as the silent bitch. Because... Baditude doesn't even begin to describe it. She's just... I don't know. Possibly a proto-Karen. Which is, you know, the fact that I haven't seen anything that makes me think for certain that there's not going to be redeeming qualities to her is why I hesitate to call her that. But she definitely had very snooty tastes. Snooty attitude. Anyways, like I said, it was the most shoujo-ish episode so far, with not a whole lot of silent witch flavoring to it. Maybe just a subtle, but yeah, could have been more. Tougen Anki, I think I'm just dropping it. It's not that it's bad, but it's that it's just so straightforward shonen that I guess I'm not particularly excited to watch the next episode, per se. It's just kind of marching forward. And I think it makes sense why people would enjoy it. It's just, for me, you know, it's done a good enough job. Chihiro and the Assassin Princesses, Episode 6. This show is doing a lot of really strong CL stuff. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing her name correctly. But I think as I pointed out earlier on, it does seem like Anemone is the hardest character for them to really do stuff with, because even when they had her have her moment, it was also one where it's just like it worked, But what does it mean? Because you can kind of see what their group dynamics are doing to the other characters and why those are kind of working. But at the same time, Anemone continues to be the one who's a little neglected in that regard. And the show kind of knows it, and this episode is lightly addressing those. I don't think it's strongly addressing them, just lightly so. But I think it's still being fun, dynamic with its interactions. So it's I think continuing to do a good job of just being interesting to keep watching. Scoop up by an S-rank adventurer, though, episode 6. Like I kind of implied, there's elements of the writing that are getting worse as it goes, and this episode was just straight up Mary Sue bullshit. And, our main character is a guy, of course, so you could say it's a Gary Stu, but it's still a Mary Sue. The name refers to a trope, not necessarily a character, but sometimes people acknowledge, okay, the concept of Mary Sue can apply to Mary Sue, and Gary Stu could just be the male version, whichever makes sense to you, because when they say, okay, well, we're going to hinge our entire plan on our main character by name possibly coming back and taking care of all this shit for us. And of course, it's also the same episode that really introduces the previous party and their smugness, and some people saying, oh yeah, maybe it was Lloyd the whole time. Okay, then let's all attach ourselves to Lloyd's dick and suck him off. I know that's very vulgar to say, but sometimes that's the problem with these isekai. This one isn't isekai. These power fantasy, medieval fantasy things. And like I said, the way it set up the premise was fine, and the way it was pacing stuff was weird but okay. But now the writing is just starting to suffer because I guess maybe they weren't completely there or something like that. But I don't know. We'll see how I feel. Maybe based on the title of episode 7 if I feel like watching more. Because for the most part, I guess there's a reason to watch it in that I'll kind of get to see what happens when Lloyd is reunited with his former party members who are now in agreement that he was a good person. I'll see what that means. I'm worried that it will lead too quickly to, oh yeah, he's just the bestest ever or something. I don't know, we'll have to see. Summer Hikaru died, episode 6. I think good relationship-y sort of stuff. Maybe a feeling for some of the horror concepts, but I don't know. I still feel like this is a show that's wasted potential from a horror perspective. But, I'm still interested to see where the relation stuff goes. Yeah. But at the same time, I'm probably not going to be too eager to rewatch it because I don't feel like I'll know whether or not, I don't know. Like, I won't feel like it has good horror stuff to it. I don't know. Ugly Mug Epic Fighter episode 6. I guess it's an episode. I think the problem is that while this one did establish its purpose, I'm not sure if it feels like there's necessarily meaning to that purpose. This episode kind of feels that to a certain degree. So we'll have to see how I feel again when the next episode comes out. Because they're establishing the next thing that they're doing. But yeah, I don't know. Apocalypse Bringer Minogra, episode 6. I think a slightly touching episode, and I do think it's touching up on yeah, I was just thinking some of their conversation in that episode was very, very much what I would have wanted to see regarding the fact that it is inspired not by an RPG or a Memoirpigure, but instead because it is inspired by those games like Civilization games where you research points and you build units and construct buildings and pool resources and stuff like that. So they're setting up what they're about to do next in the next episode, and again, in this one, as a part of leading up to that, had interesting stuff. So I've been finding it fun. I'm not sure that it necessarily rates too high, but I personally have been finding it fun. Gachiakuta, episode 5. Unfortunately, this has felt like the most shonen episode yet. Which maybe could be a bad thing, or it just is. I'd say it's kind of unfortunate though, because while it is perfectly great as a shonen, this one felt like it started with a premise that's like, yeah, here's meaning, here's where we want to see him. You know, this is kind of like the other angry shows, like Shield Hero and the latest episode of Outcast Restaurant, where it's just like, yeah, you got angry at people and you want to see some glorious revenge. But it feels like it's kind of vanishing into shonen space. Hard to say for certain if it feels like continuing to watch this will have a feel to its resolution or not. I guess we'll have to see. Meanwhile, Sword of the Demon Hunter, Season 1, Part 2, Episode 18. I think it's interesting that we got to see that character, I guess a number of characters older, but I do feel like one of the characters that we saw older, we did not, the interactions felt a little shallower than I would have thought. In fact, there was some interesting animation, not necessarily errors, but kind of animation issues where it jumped between a couple frames in there that's just like, eh. But overall, it was a neat little episode that did tie into the main things and reintroduce main items and was ultimately not really about them, but hard to say beyond that what to think about it. Anyways, that's all of this week's anime. Do I have anything else to comment about? I did play a lot more Dead by Daylight this weekend than I guess I have been. Probably the biggest note about that is that while I am a normally a Sybil Bennett main, I've been playing Lara Croft a bit. I mean, she's already had very neat outfits, but what I guess was specifically neat about her this time is now she has her original iconic outfit. And I don't know. It's made playing as her feel more like playing as her than she's ever been in this game. So I've just been enjoying that. Can't think of anything else I've really done. I did put myself on the Amazon waitlist for the Switch 2, for those of you that are curious. We'll have to see if maybe I'll look other places. I've had a couple of times where I could have walked to GameStop and asked them because I was in the area, but I've just been so exhausted lately. This probably means that I won't play Pokemon Legends ZA when it comes out, I'm guessing. You know, because I'm just assuming the wait list for people trying to order this from Amazon is just long. Yeah, we'll find out. But, you know, at least you can say Giga took a step forward doing that. And it was a small, weak step, but still a step forward. Anyways, I think that probably wraps up everything. So I'll go ahead and end the video there. You know, thank you for listening this whole time. You know, you didn't have to. And you still don't have to if you do in the future. But, you know, I just never say that. But let's end on that note and say, y'all, have a nice week.